Welcome to Tourism Talk. I'm Laura Oswald, Director of Marketing at the Paducah Convention and Visitors Bureau. April is always an exciting time of year in our office as we prepare to welcome visitors from all around the world for Quilt Week and the Dogwood Trail. Today we have Bonnie Browning with AQS, the Executive Show Director, here to share a bit of what's new and noteworthy about Spring Quilt Week 2018. Bonnie,
good morning.
Welcome.
Yes, it's time for the quilt show already.
It is. We're so excited, and we know that there are many great events and exhibits in store, so thank you for being back with us today.
Well, we're going to kick off the show like we always do on Tuesday evening by announcing the winners at our awards presentation at the Carson Center. But to open that evening, we're going to have Tristan McIntosh, who was one of the finalists on American Idol this last year. And I saw her at a meeting I went to, and so we booked her, and I know everybody is just going to love getting to meet and see Tristan McIntosh.
And you all always bring in some great entertainment, but I especially love that this is sort of a regional showcase, bringing a star from the region to share.
Yes, she lives in Clarksville, Tennessee, and so she'll be here with her whole band.
Great.
Yeah, that makes it, they only have an hour drive, and so they'll be able to come up and open the awards for us.
Great, and that is on April 17th, and then the show actually runs April 18th through the 21st, but there are some events leading up to it as in that evening with the awards and then the sneak peek.
Yes, the sneak preview is a benefit that we do for the National Quilt Museum, and that follows the awards. We make the announcement of who the big winners are, and then you'll get to meet a lot of those winners over in the exhibit hall that evening from 7 until 9.
Wonderful, wonderful. And not only do you get to see those contest quilts, but there are the special exhibitions, which I know you have a great lineup this year. Share a little bit more about what we can see and expect there.
Well, of course, we'll have more than 400 contest quilts, and we have 2 of those here on the set with us today. This one is by Elaine Wick Poplin, and no, the one behind me is Elaine Wick Poplin, and the one on this side is Mayung Jong from South Korea. And this is a contest quilt. So we have, I believe, contest quilts from 44 states and 14 countries here at the Paducah show this year. And so South Korea is one of those countries. But we also have some other international exhibits. We have the Contemporary Quilt Arts from the US and Brazil, and that's sponsored by Edmar. And then we have the SAQUA, the Studio Art Quilts Association quilts from South Korea called Korean Quilts Now. And we're going to be really lucky because 3 of the artists from that exhibit are going to be with us. And they will be displayed at the Paducah School of Art and Design.
Which is a fabulous venue. And before we move on to the next exhibit, I have to say that those artists are coming from one of our fellow creative cities, Seoul, South Korea.
They are. And so they will be open during the show hours over at the School of Art. And we will have a transportation, a shuttle bus that will go from the Expo Center to the Dome Pavilion, and then one of those buses will go on over to the School of Art. And on Thursday evening, they're going to have a special reception as an opening for this exhibit. And so that'll be a really fun place to be able to spend a little bit of quality time with Missik Kim and the 2 other artists that will be coming to the show.
Wonderful. And before we move any further, I'd love to share with people where they can find more information about all of these events we're talking about.
Yes, quiltweek.com is our website for our shows. And so you would go to quiltweek.com and click on the Spring Paducah show, and it will give you everything you need to know. And particularly the travel section, there's a button for that. Be sure to check that for parking information, shuttle information, and we have several sanctioned events that are partnering with us during the show, and there's information there on those as well. And I just got the link this morning so that you can adopt a duck for the Paducah Derby that we work with the Merriman House on.
Yeah, and we love that you have that kind of social responsibility project, tying that in. So many good causes in our community, and supporting Merriman House is certainly a great one.
It certainly is.
And if people haven't done that, that's something they should do, adopt a duck or a quack pack.
Yeah, that's right. $5 for one duck, or a quack pack for 6 for $25.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as you said, there are events happening all over town at multiple venues for the show. So the Convention and Expo Center will have quilts and vendors.
Yes, and the Dome Pavilion has vendors, and Ricky Tim's quilts will be on exhibit over there, as will the newest Cherrywood Challenge, and it's called Van Gogh.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I saw a preview and it's beautiful.
I just saw the first of those, and everybody will want to make sure they get over to the Dome Pavilion and see those quilts, because it's outstanding. Every year it gets a little better.
Yes, yes. And they usually have some sort of an international tie-in or something to pop culture. It's always fun to see. So, so many different special exhibits. It's fabulous.
Well, in Ricky Tim's quilt exhibit over there, we've been featuring an instructor at each of our shows, and so at this show we will be featuring Ricky Tim's quilts.
Yes, and he is always a favorite. We've got to mention that he has a special show at the Carson Center again.
That's on Friday evening at 7 o'clock.
Wonderful.
And I know a lot of people have seen his event there, but I can tell you that it's never the same. You might hear a story or two that he repeats, but the entertainment itself is always different.
Wonderful. And another male quilter or fiber artist in the spotlight, Ian Barry.
Oh,
Tell
my
us
goodness.
about him.
Yes, Ian Barry's coming from the United Kingdom. And if you haven't seen any of Ian's work, he works in nothing but denim. And they aren't quilts per se, they really are fiber art. Right. But the first floor of the convention center will be set up in 4 different galleries of Ian's work.
Wonderful.
And he'll also be here as an artist in residence too. So he'll be working with the high schools through that program the week before the show.
Wonderful.
And then he'll be here during the show. You'll definitely want to meet Ian Barry.
Yes, yes. And we've loved having those artists in residence, like with the past fall and spring shows. It's been fabulous. So definitely check that out. That's new. What about the contest quilts? You mentioned that they'll be at multiple venues, over 400?
It is. The large quilts hang in the Expo Center, and the wall quilts hang on the 2nd floor of the convention center. But there are quilts in every single venue. We have 5 different venues. We have the 1st floor and the 2nd floor of the convention center, the Expo Center, and those are attached. Then you have to hop on a shuttle to get over to the Dome Pavilion and then to the School of Art. And so if you're not here for 2 or 3 days, you need to be, don't they?
Yes, you want to see it all.
That's right.
You know, like you said, check out the website and find that information about parking. There's so many great public parking lots in different locations downtown and right there at the show, and as well as shuttles. So look for that, and you can also check the link from Quilt Week to Paducah.travel/quilting for all those sanctioned and community events that are happening.
Yes, and I will encourage, I know a lot of people try to park at places out of downtown, but we've been finding that the parking lots downtown have not been full, so you could park a whole lot closer.
Yes.
But if you're coming into town and want to find a place to park and ride a shuttle downtown, the park and ride location is out at the Kentucky Oaks Mall.
Yes.
And those buses will be running from 9 in the morning until right after the show closes.
Yes.
Each day. So they can park out there if they want to.
Right.
And I will just tell you though that the Rotary Club does an antique quilt show and vendors at the Cherry Civic Center. And that's not a permanent parking location. They do have a very small parking lot, but it's really for those people that are just going to go in and see the exhibit and then move their car so they can accommodate more people. Not long-term parking there, that's short-term parking.
And as you said, Kentucky Oaks Mall is a great location, and there's some great locations downtown, and we have seen those maybe underutilized. So we'd encourage people to get down a little bit closer to the show.
Yes, I mean, if you go to the lots that are right downtown, right across from the Visitors Bureau, right there on Broadway, the lot right behind the Quilt Museum. Both of those lots have not been full, so I bet we'll get them full this time.
Yes, yeah, and we've made an effort to include those parking locations in the show book, on the map in the April events guide. So
right.
look for that, and if you have any questions, you know, we've always got those resources with those shuttle route maps that can clarify any questions you may have. So get around town and see it all.
That's right. And then, of course, you know, our other building is the Finkel building downtown, and there are vendors in that location as well. And in the back room is the AQS Hurt book sale.
Yes.
So you can buy books for $5 if you're a member, or $6 if you aren't. And I know a lot of the quilters like to stock up both their own and their guild's library with books there.
Yes, and that opens a day early.
Yes,
so
it's open from 10 till 6 on Tuesday.
Wonderful, wonderful. So check the website, start planning that itinerary. In addition to that, there are, you know, a couple of other sanctioned events that we need to talk about. The National Quilt Museum.
Absolutely. You know, you don't want to leave town without visiting the National Quilt Museum. You know, it's one of our national treasures, really. It's the National Quilt Museum of the United States of America.
Yes.
So if you come to Paducah, you definitely need to see that.
And they're unveiling a new exhibit space with the Corner Gallery. And so one of their special events is the Artist Talk with Regina Benson. Really interesting, multidimensional techniques. So it's great to see, you know, kind of the venues multiply across town as Quilt Week pops
That's
up.
right. And so the sanctioned events are the Rotary Club, the National Quilt Museum, and the Yiser Art Center that does their Fantastic Fibers exhibit every year. And that's right down in the Market House. If you're in downtown, right on the corner of Broadway and 2nd Street, Street, that's within walking distance too from the convention center.
And it's so great to see the various techniques and fiber artistry kind of all around town. Fantastic Fibers was indeed fantastic last year, and I know that they received many, you know, submissions from around the world.
Several hundred.
So we're so excited to see that. And each juror that they have really brings that idea of fiber art to light in a different way with what they select.
Well, and it isn't just quilts. You're going to see sculpture that's done out of fiber, all kinds of different things that we quilters probably wouldn't think about, but it's a great exhibit. Can we talk just a little bit about their transportation?
Sure.
Because the shuttles that run to the convention center, from the convention center out to the hotels and the various attractions, that's called the shuttle stop, and it's right next to the expo center. No, it's right next to the convention center.
Yes.
In front of the expo center is what we call the AQS bus stop, and that's where the charter tours, it's where the city tour bus will meet people that the ambassadors do on Thursday and Friday. And it's also where the shuttle that goes over to the pavilion will be there in front of the expo center. All of the others. And the National Quilt Museum runs a van shuttle too that will be there at the shuttle stop right next to the convention center. And I will just say that I know some people get upset because they maybe have to wait. It really depends on how many people are riding the buses. I know we've hauled more than 30,000 people on these buses every year. So it's a lot of people getting on and off. So you have to allow a little time for people to get off, more people to get on, and then them to continue on their route. And there are 3 different buses that'll be going to the hotels that have contracted for that service. And there's one bus that'll be going to the Park and Ride. That's a back and forth bus from the Park and Ride. And the trolleys will be servicing downtown. So it will go through its regular route through Lower Town, downtown, so that you can get down to the downtown businesses and see the window displays. They always decorate them so well. And so there's a lot of transportation for you to be able to move around town. So you can park your car and pretty much get on the shuttle buses and the trolleys to be able to go where you might want to go.
Yes, and you can find those routes again in multiple places. We'll have those available in paper, in the show book, and online. So there's no reason not to get all around the city. We're fortunate to have people participating locally, partners to make that possible.
And one of the things that we're doing now that we didn't used to do is that as soon as the show book is up and ready to go to the printer, we're posting that online.
Oh, great.
So you can go to quiltweek.com, click on Spring Paducah, scroll down to where it says a button that says show book, and it's a PDF so that you can find out if your favorite vendor is going to be here and where they're located. It's also a reminder of where your classes might be if you're registered for classes. And so the whole show book, except for the winners list. We won't put that on there. We won't put that on there. But the rest of it, as soon as it's available and everything's gone to the printer, then we'll be able to get it up online.
That's wonderful. And you mentioned some of the classes, and there are so many exhibits to see and merchants to visit, but the education is world class. Tell us about who's coming this year, what classes are really the hot workshops to take this year.
Well, I can tell you the #1 class that filled this year, we always watch that because it's fun to see which class does that. And that was a class on using rulers with your home domestic machine. You know, the long arm quilters have been using those rulers for a long time, but now the manufacturers of the home machines have made feet to fit. It has to have a deeper section on the very bottom so the ruler doesn't slide underneath.
Right.
And anyway, every manufacturer now has those available. People want to know how to use those rulers with their home machine.
New technology.
It is, certainly. And we have Hollis Chatelaine will be here. We do, this is the only location where we do the appraisal classes. So if someone's interested in those kinds of programs. Cindy Sykes-Krug will be here doing machine work on your home machine. And oh my gosh, Pat Yaman's teaching, Grace Aria. A lot of the classes are already filled. So if you're interested in a class, I suggest you go pretty quickly to go register. And then if you come to the show and you decide you want to take a lecture or something, you can usually buy those right there at the show.
Yes, wonderful. And you do have some lectures throughout, and the All-Star Review.
All-Star Review is now on Wednesday evening. We moved it from Tuesday afternoon because that was so hectic trying to get the awards all put together. So Wednesday evening is the All-Star Review, and we do it again from 1 to 3 on Saturday. Different teachers, might be the same teachers, different subjects that they'll be talking about at both of those. And then Thursday night is the National Quilt Museum's quilt auction that they do every year. And Friday night is Ricky Tim's over at the Carson Center.
Wonderful. A great lineup. Another great lineup. And this is the 34th year for Spring Quilt Week. That is incredible. And even with 34 years, I think some people may not realize how many different categories. You've mentioned awards a couple of times. There are these incredible quilts that are on display in so many different categories, so many different styles of quilting and techniques that are represented.
We do. We have 16 categories in our contest here in Paducah, and this is the only show that we do a miniature category. And we do that because they're so small. We put them in cases so that they're protected because they could walk off very easily, and they're gorgeous. And then we have a variety of other categories. Most of them are divided by how it's quilted. We have hand quilted category, home machine in both large and small quilts, movable machine, which is the long arm in both large quilts and small quilts, and modern category is one that we have here. And so there's usually something for everybody. We try to make sure that we have a wide variety, both in our contest quilts, which is featuring the very latest techniques, and then in our special exhibits as well.
Yes. And what was that statistic again? You mentioned contest quilts have come from all over the world.
44 states in 14 countries.
Wow. That number is always astounding.
I know it is, but you know, it just really shows that this is really an international quilting event.
Yes.
And the quilters love coming to Paducah whether they're coming from abroad or whether they're coming from across the state.
Yes.
This is on everybody's bucket list.
And Paducah loves to welcome the quilters. And I know that you've been part of Paducah's place as a creative city in the world. As a UNESCO Creative City, we received that designation really because of these contemporary quilting experiences that Paducah offers, and
right.
as home of the American Quilter Society is really working to further the art of quilting in the world. From your experiences working within the network, what is it like to represent Paducah internationally like that?
Well, do you know, it's really fun to see the wide variety of, even in the crafts and folk art section that we're in for UNESCO, is that these cities have really world famous artists, whether they're doing clay sculptures in South Korea, or whether they're making paper in Italy.
Right.
It really is what I consider the top of the class, no matter what it is that you do. And of course, we like being top of the class in the quilt area.
Absolutely, yes. And showing that quilting is an art up there with those other practices.
Right.
It's really a special role to be able to tell Paducah's story in that way, and we certainly want to invite everyone to come be part of that and see these world-class quilts on display during Quilt Week.
Well, and you know, one of the best parts though is really the camaraderie amongst the quilters.
Yes.
You know, we have mothers and daughters and sisters and friends over the internet who've never met before. They all gather here, and our common thread is really quilt making.
Absolutely, and I think that in those events all throughout the community, you see some of those different traditions or diverse quilts with the African-American quilts at the Hotel Metropolitan or the antique quilts at Rotary. You really see kind of that world of quilting come to light, and seeing the people here celebrating that together. We're really proud of that here in Paducah.
That's right. Now, if people don't have a room yet, on the Paducah.travel website, yes, they can click on quilting and then go to the Spring Paducah Show. You'll find a list of the hotels, and some of them do have a few rooms available. And then we no longer are doing the home bed and breakfast.
Right.
Those homeowners have signed up under the Airbnb program. And so if you go to airbnb.com and put in the city of Paducah, it'll bring up whatever homes are still available for, yes, that. So there still are rooms. If you haven't made your plans, yes, yet, there still are rooms in the area.
Late.
That's right.
Yes. Well, before, I think we've given everyone the tools to plan for Spring Quilt Week, but before we leave, I'd love if you give kind of a look back on Fall Quilt Week. Last year in 2017, we had the very first Fall AQS Quilt Week in Paducah, and it was a success. Tell us about it.
It was. You know, every time we've done a first show in any city, we've had somewhere between 15 and 20,000 people. So our goal was that we would have 15 to 20,000. We had 16,300 people came. So we just feel like that's a really good base to grow from. And the contest was probably the thing that was most different. We only had 7 categories, and those category, the judges chose the first, second, and third places, but then we opened it up for the public to vote from amongst the first place winners to award the top awards.
Which was so fun. I think everyone enjoyed it.
It was fun, and you know what? I mean, I think I would have chosen the one that the public chose too. And so we will be changing that up a little bit for the fall. This first time we didn't have but one picture up there, and you couldn't see the beautiful quilting and stuff on it. When we do it for 2018, we will have the full quilt and a detail so that you can go in and take a look a little closer.
Because you could vote from afar.
You could vote from anywhere that you had an internet that you could access our website.
Yes.
That's all you needed, and you got one vote. Everybody got one vote.
Yes, and that was kind of a new thing in the quilt world to have that voting mechanism. So we're excited for that again, and look forward to the detail shots.
And you know what? We wanted to make it so it was a little bit different. And our layouts were different of the different venues. And of course, the contest probably was the thing that was most different.
Yes.
But we still had beautiful quilts.
We sure did. And like you said, the best of show was a great story. A photo that ended up on the cover of National Geographic transformed into a quilt.
Yes, it was, with permission, of
Yes,
course. Yeah,
yes.
you always want to ask for permission if you're using somebody's photograph.
Yes.
But Kathy McNeil was that winner. And it just so happened that the lady who took the photograph was also here at the quilt show, so they both sort of got to celebrate.
Yes, that was wonderful. And then later in the month of September, Fall Quilt Week was in September, Paducah hosted the UNESCO Creative Cities of Craft and Folk Art. And you had a really interesting role in helping to facilitate the creation of some quilts that were souvenirs or gifts to the cities that were present with the Paducah Stitch and Quilt Guild. Tell us about that.
Well, do you know, when you come from Quilt City, USA, it doesn't make any difference where I go that we have to give some kind of award.
Yes.
They expect a quilt. So I knew that early on. And so I asked the Paducah Stitch and Quilt Guild if they would help me. And so I cut all the parts. I designed it and cut all the parts. And it was a block called Kentucky Crossroads, which
So appropriate.
had great meaning for what we were doing. And we got together one day at the Quilt Museum, and they all sat down and sewed, and we made 14 quilts. And then I had different people who volunteered to, well, some of them I twisted their arm a little bit, but I sent the quilts out then to be quilted. And Irene Rising, who lives here in Paducah,
Yes.
did about half of them. And the rest of them, I sent 2 or 3 to quilters that got them all quilted, beautifully quilted. And then we got to have a really nice presentation at lunch one day to call a representative up and be able to receive those quilts. And I just have to tell you, they were thrilled with those quilts.
It was so special. And
Yes.
I have to say, it was following up your presentation on the history of AQS and Quilt Week. And so that it was only appropriate that that was the time that we made the presentation. And you and Meredith Schrader, Lynn Lloyd, it was so special. And I'm sure that those quilts are hanging in those cities around the world now.
Well, and we made them in a size that you could put them in an office. You know, we don't all have lots of wall space in our offices, or if we do, it might be a bulletin board. But we made them small enough. They were about 30 inches, I think, was the size of the quilts. And I forgot to mention too that the girl who works at the Visitors Bureau.
Oh, Kathy.
Oh, yes. Kathy Neary bound all of those quilts for us. And you know, when you finish a quilt, that takes a whole lot longer than you remember it, because it's been a while since you bound the last finished quilt. But she took a couple weeks and bound each of those quilts for us. So it was really a community effort to get that all done.
A beautiful team effort. And Bonnie, thank you for being such a part of Team Paducah, you and AQS. And we look forward to Spring Quilt Week and welcoming the world back to Paducah to celebrate quilting. Thank you for being with us today, Bonnie. And please do mark your calendars for Spring AQS Quilt Week, April 18th through the 21st, 2018. Visit quiltweek.com and paducah.travel/quilting to plan your itinerary and make your way to Paducah. We'll see you in April. Thanks for joining us.
1, 2, 1, 2, go. Hello, ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Hello, ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-ba-da-ba-ba.